Jai Hind. Myself Anuj Kumar Dwivedi, Assistant Professor, CSE Department. In today's lecture, we are going to talk about principles of user interface design. So first, we know about what is the user interface. User interface is the space which provide the interaction between the user and machine. So any designer and developer, if they want to usability and popularity of their product, they must be focused during the design process. So there are some common principles that must be followed to get popularity and usability of the user interface. So first and foremost thing that the designer and developer must be follow, that is the interface should be the extension of a human model. That means it must be more and more natural that it can be. Person's capabilities and responses must be incorporated in the interface, right? So that it should be useful and it may be able to incorporate various business objectives faster and in efficient manner, right? So throughout the history of the human computer interface, various researchers and writers have attempted to define set of general principles. They summarize their efforts to help to the in the coming generations, so that they may able to incorporate their experiences in their design. So in general principles, all principles are common for the graphical user interface as well as for the web interfaces, right? So some common features that must be followed during the designs are: the first principle for the user interface design is aesthetically pleasing. What this principle says? This principle says that your interface must have the visual appeals, look and feel must be there, right? In terms of the spacing between the icons, between the images, between the menus are very clear, so that your interface or screen must be soothing for the eyes, right? The two kinds of aesthetical pleasing are expected from the user interface. First one is the visual pleasing. Visually aesthetic screen must be there, and secondly there is a functional usability in the screen, right? So there should be meaningful contrast, meaningful colors in the screens, and there should be separation between the icons, and similar types of elements should be grouped together, so that the screen must be clear, and the designer must be able to provide a balanced screen for the user. So first principle says that the screen or interface must be aesthetically pleasing, must look and feel, must be soothing for the eyes of the user. And the second principle says that the interface must have the clarity, right? So visual elements must be clear, the elements must be understandable and easily indicate that what is the meaning of this particular elements. Similarly for the functions, and the words and the text used in the screen to are used, captions used for any button, any icon, any image must be clear. There is no linguistically non-understandable words should be there, that should be visually pleasing, and also the functions used, the name used for the functions must be conceptually related, right? So the metaphor means the words used in the interface for the naming of any button, any function, any icon, any image must be natural, means that is commonly used words in the uh, public. Third principle is the compatibility, right? So before going to design interface, the designer and developer must know about their users. What is the language they are using, what is the activities that are popular among the user. The first need is to study of the user must be very clear cut, so that you can create an interface compatible with the user. Secondly, the designer must know about the task and jobs, the activities they performing for the accomplishing their task and job, so that the designer must accomplish their human cognitive model in their design, and the product that they expecting from the designer, that must be understood in the study of the user. Various feedbacks would be there, so that the compatibility must be achieved for the all the expectations of the users, right? So overall, if we conclude compatibility in words, means adopt the user's perspective. Means first you have to take feedback from the user, you have to learn to the about the user, that what the user expect and the what the user gets, that must be clear. In what manner user want to expecting the outcomes of the various functions, that must be know from the user in beforehand. And fourth principle is the comprehensibility. Comprehensibility means a system should be easily learned and understood, right? So the flow of actions and responses should be visible presentation, and information should be in a sensible order, right? So that the user may recollect, and the actions may the user may place in their context. So the necessity to achieve comprehensibility, the features must be included: what to look at, what to do, when to do it, where to do it, why to do it, and how to do it. That scenarios must be clear to the user. There should be no complication, right? There should be directness to understanding of the flow and actions. The user should not get any complication. So that kind of direct comprehensibility should be in the interface. And fifth principle is the configurability, right? So configuration means easy personalization and customization through configuration, and reconfiguration must be provided to the user, so that the user feels that the system is in his control, and they feel much more connected with the system, right? So the controls, if she feel the system is in its control, she feel encourages, and they will play more active role in understanding of the interface, right? So if they able to configure each various controls and various colors and backgrounds as per their own, they are able to change font as per their liking, they feel more connected with the system, and this will this will increase the usability of the system. So this is the power of, this will become the power of the interface if the user is able to configure their interface as their own liking. Although there is default configuration is there, but if user want to some changes, they should be able. And the sixth principle of the user interface is the consistency. This is the more powerful principle that must be incorporated in the interface, right? What does it mean? A system should look, act and operate the same throughout. Means the similar type of functions should be similar in different screen, right? And look should be similar, right? And suppose if you take example of a search button, so mostly all popular interfaces have the search button in the topmost layout. So you should also use in your design that button in the topmost design. So similar type of functions in a task should be remain same in different screen. It it increase the predictability of the system. When the user using frequently interface, they will predict the system that this particular button is used for that particular task. If you not change in different screen, so your system become predictable and it enhances the usability of your system, right? So consistency must be maintained in the overall system design. Similar type of things must be similar in different screen. Same in principle is the control, right? The user must control the interaction. Means suppose a user perform a copy and then paste in a some folder, then there should be control in the hand of the user. When they want to interrupt the task or terminate the task, they should be able to do all these things. So so various actions are there, and the control of the performing and not performing of the various actions in between, that control must be with the user's hands. And the eighth principle of the user interface is the directness, right? So when the user want to accomplish a task, various alternative must be available, right? And should be visible, right? And the effect of actions and objects should be visible. Suppose if you want to open a Microsoft Word file, then there will be a file named whatever task you have planned, and you can directly double click on that screen to open, double click on that particular object to open the Word file, or you may follow a proper path that you go to the menu bar, click on the file, then click on the open, then you may open that particular object. So that option should also be visible. So various if a task can be actioned with the various alternatives, then all the alternatives should be visible to the user and there should be no difficulty in using the alternates. And the ninth principle of the user interface design is the efficiency, right? Efficiency means the interaction time should be minimum for the any interface. So designer incorporate their effort in the designing that the efficiency must be there in their interface, means the interaction time should be minimized. So efficiency means minimize eye and hand movement and other control actions. So time should be saved to interact with a particular objects. Objects must be identifiable in a simple way, and the identification of the object must be easy. So there is a Fitts law. With the use of Fitts law, we may design the size of particular object so that the interaction time must be minimized, and also the navigation path should be short as possible so that user can efficiently follow the path to the different screens, right? So anticipation of the users wants and needs whenever possible should be taken care to create any efficient interface. right? The major efficiency means you designer must be careful about the identification of the object and about the actions performed over the object should be occur in minimum time. So interaction time is the major focus in achieving the efficiency. And the 10th principle is the familiarity, right? So familiarity means employ familiar concepts and use a language that is familiar to the user, right? So you as a designer must use the common words or common commands to perform a action. For example, in the common application Microsoft Word, there is a various familiar commands like cut, copy, paste, right? These are the common principle. Undo, Control Z, Control X, Control C. These are the familiar shortcuts. So all users are familiar with these shortcuts. So a designer should use these familiar key terms that maybe make the user's life easy and easy understandable, right? So simply in single line, use real words, metaphors that are much popular between the users, right? And the 11th principle of the user interface is the flexibility. So system must be flexible, right? So each user's knowledge and skills and each user's experience and each user personal preferences and each user's habits, right? So conditions at the moment. So suppose you have created a Google form, right? And simply for the input you may use a keyboard for the input, or any user if they want to use copy and paste, so there must be flexibility to the user. So they may use different type, they may customize their self to use their own easy way. So there is no foundation. If there is a alternate is available, the user must be flexible to use that particular available alternates. So this flexibility also enhance the performance of the user, also enhance the performance of the system. And the 12th principle is the forgiveness, means the interface should not be rigid about the user's errors, right? Means tolerate the forgive common and unavoidable human error. Suppose user deleted some file accidentally, then there should be a chance that you may not lose their data. There should be a message that are you want to save or delete this particular file. Then if user is sure, they say yes, or if the file is action is performed accidentally, they may say no, right? So that kind of provision should be there so that user can prevent from errors, right? And the 13th principle that we will discuss here, this is predictability, right? So predictability means your system must follow the consistency. If system follow the consistency, the system will become the predictable and it will enhance the usability of your system. The user should be able to anticipate the natural progression of each task, right? So what will going to come in the next screen, the user must be anticipate in beforehand. So it will save the time and also enhance the usability, right? Provide distinct and recognizable screen elements, provide cues to the result of an action to be performed. All expectations should be fulfilled uniformly and completely, right? So there should be, if there is a consistency, suppose if in a particular document, if you are using two colors, red for some particular data and green for some particular data. So user will become the predictable. In the next screen, when the red will see, if he see red, then they will anticipate that what kind of data is there. If he see green, they may anticipate what kind of data they are looking. So this is the predictability that makes the users usability and functions usability enhancement too. 14th principle is the simplicity, right? So there are 5 ways to provide simplicity. So use progressive disclosures, right? Means user should show the minimum information, hiding things until they are needed. Only present the common necessity and functions, right? And there should be various options inside a tab. You may see the examples in the various interfaces where more option is there. So user must very few information should be visible to the user, that is most common, and there should be default for each and every action, right? And minimum screen alignment point should be there. So visually unclutter screen is expected. There should be no visual noise in the screen. Make common actions simple at expense of uncommon actions being made harder, right? So make common simple and expenses, provide uniformity and consistency. So screen alignment of the screen element should be uniform. There should be a balance. If there is a unbalanced screen, that will be unaesthetic, that is not desirable by the user. So you must keep care of the human naturalness, what kind of interfaces, what kind of layouts attract the user, that you must have to study, and the designer should be implemented that kind of human cognitive scenarios in their design, so that the user must get interacted with their aesthetically design and functional design also. And the 15th principle is the transparency should be there. Means the user, the interface designing should be like that, the user must focus on their task, right? There should be abstraction. User should not bother about the what is going on in the background, right? So without concern of mechanism of the interface, user may be able to perform their task easily, right? Working and reminders of workings inside the computer should be invisible to the user. There should be invisible technology, right? So any technical glitch should not be affect the user's working. The system must be easy and usable from the user for all the times, right? So any technical limitation should not become across the user for the using the system, right? So these are the 15 common principles that should be followed during the interface design. But there will be conflict if we going to follow all these principles during the design. So what should we do in that scenario? So there we should follow a balancing between all these principles. So some principles can be followed and some principle cannot be feasible in that particular moment. So there will be a trade-off between the various principles. So we designer must be careful to make a balance between the various principle. But the one thing that should be keep in mind, that the pupil's requirement always take precedence over a technical requirement. So user interface must be a user-centric design. There should be hiding of technical limitation. User should be not suffer due to technical limitations. So user centric design is the most prominent, should be from the designer point of view and developer point of view. So these basic principles and guidelines are for the designers that should we follow for the achieving the better usability and better functional usability of the system, right? Thank you.